So right now we're with one of our healthcare women in our community of Flin, Manitoba, Hilary Cooper. I've known her in various roles. She's involved with many things in the community. But I was really excited that she agreed to come and let us celebrate her role as a woman in the community in this capacity. In celebration of International Women's Week in Flin. So thank you for doing this, Hilary.
Thank you.
So your journey, when I look at somebody my age, if you're still a young woman, but you've done many things in your life, how did you get to where you are now?
I came back to Flin, which is my home, as a young nurse fresh out of university, and I really had the opportunity to take an entry role here, and was mentored by so many fantastic other folks that work in healthcare. Healthcare is a female-dominated, women-dominated sort of profession in terms of nursing, so there were a lot of women that along the way that kind of mentored me, but I did have some specific, really firm role models, women that weren't afraid to kind of impart their wisdom, good, bad, and ugly, about, kind of like the real hard knocks of the profession. And then, where they're sort of prepared to build capacity in a young nurse starting in the field, which was me at the time. And I think, we have to, I've tried to remember that. I've tried to remember that so much of what I learned was not in the books and in my degree. It was in the people that I worked beside in those early days. And those women had spent a career building on the knowledge and wisdom of other women in the profession, which, as you know, decade to decade, it changes so rapidly, right?
Yeah,
so we, I think just knowing that there's a network of women to support women professionally, and certainly in my role that was sort of my start, and I think it's important to remember that moving forward, that we need to mentor and build capacity in professions that women are working firmly in, and I just kind of snuck a peek at my notes here, because when we look at like kind of how women are mentored and provide leadership, it's not just at the local level. Like, so working in public health, I've seen in the past year of the pandemic that we've been living in, that we've been mentored by these women in really important positions, like Dr. Tam, who is our medical officer of health for the country, Dr. Bonnie Henry, who's quite a vocal medical officer of health for BC. There are several medical officers of health that I work with daily in the province that are super skilled, and Patty Haiju, who's our Minister of Health at the federal level, right? So.
Well, yeah, I find that I find that women, I don't know whether it's the being mothers or aunties or sisters, there is that interesting capacity of understanding. I think it's within all humanity, but there's something, I think, as a woman hearing something like Dr. Tam, and she's extremely serious and practical and down to earth, but yet it just feels like, okay, yes, I think we're all in this together, and I appreciate it. But in all honesty, I've been feeling that with everybody in the medical profession through this COVID. I feel like everybody has been working so hard to try to do the right thing, and like you said, we're all learning along the way, and so it's been quite the story. So after all the mentoring that you've received, how do you influence and mentor women in your community or in your profession? You have daughters, what do you feel women's role is now in 2021 for all of that?
That's huge. I think that the crux of it really is that women belong in places where decisions are being made, whether that's decisions for other women or just communities in general. And I think women are inherently mindful of the well-being of a community, and I don't know if that comes from being a mother or I think in some ways it does, but I think women are women are not, they don't fly solo. They look for communities and they look for strength of other women to learn from and draw from and get power from, right? So I think that's kind of, that's my thought. And I think working in health, we're obligated as providers to look at levels of women in healthcare provision. So right down from the client, the person that you're giving the service to say, what's your need? What are we missing? How can we help you? Give us some feedback, like what's driving you, right to the person that's providing the service, to the people that are writing the policies, to the people who are running the show, to the politicians that ultimately, have a fair amount of power over our health and well-being. We've seen that, where the resources go. So I think making sure that those levels of delivery of health are representative of women. And I think the second thing, kind of just going back to what me and my programs would offer, would be the inclusion of services that are specific to women. So remembering that women are unique in terms of their healthcare needs, their the inequality and inequity that they do face based on a whole gamut of social determinants of health, but also knowing that they have unique needs in terms of reproductive health and the rights of reproductive health, and that we can never forget that is an inherent part of what healthcare delivery for women would be.
Yeah, I find that each, whether it's male or female, there are certain strengths of each. I find that when you put it together as a whole, that you can really have a very strong society and a strong community, and to see women thriving and being able to communicate as with men, it's just you can just see that there's an inherent strength that sort of comes from that collaboration. And as women, we're just so proud when people somehow manage to do that on top of family and kids and aging parents or whatever the case might be, to be able to move forward. Yeah. So in healthcare, you experience many different topics and experiences. I would imagine right now in the last decade or 2 decades, there's been such a difference in gender bias. And I think within my own, our own families, that this has been such a expanding field. So how do you deal with all of that? Like, how does the healthcare system deal with that particular challenge?
Well, I think kind of going back to what I said before, I think it's important that we make sure we have gender parity and equity and at all the levels in organizations. So, right from the we have women seeking service, so right from the customer, the woman being the customer in healthcare, right up to the top of healthcare. So I think that we can achieve better parity if we have some equality in terms of gender in those roles. And I also believe that in health, we know that health, that we don't fly solo, and particularly working in public health, I've seen this time and time again where we have to partner with justice, we have to partner with education, we partner with industry, we partner with service sector, and all of these places and organizations need to be on the same page in terms of reflecting that in women at all levels of organization, right? So that the messaging, I think, between health and our partners is the importance of women in servicing all these fields, and again at all those levels. So not just necessarily the service provider or the woman seeking service, but the person that's making the rules,
right?
Or so representation on boards, representation in politics, right? And we see that, like, we in public health, we collaborate with the city of Flin, and we see a board of a city council who does have female representation, and we see that in health with our CEO being female. We see that in justice. We have female RCMP that we collaborate with, right? So that even 10 or 20 years ago, Crystal, and you probably remember, and I certainly do, may not have been the case.
Yes.
There may have not been the same kind of equity. So we see that that's evolved over time.
Right. How do you service the greater area? Like, how do you manage that? This is sort of a little off topic.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm kind of curious. Like, I can see, you must be busy enough just with like Flin, Flon, Creighton area, but how do you service like the Indigenous communities all around us as well?
So yeah, in health, just in terms of the response we have now to the pandemic, but certainly in terms of how we do offer healthcare in the province, we do partner with, like, we do work regionally. So communicable disease would be managed certainly by one person. That would be me within the region. So in our three kind of major sites, Flin, Flon, Thompson. And then what we do with our First Nations Inuit Health Branch communities, our provincial nursing station communities, our First Nations communities, we partner with them. They have resources and they have people who work in those communities. But if the people that live there are our people. We're all one. We're all living in the north. And so if they are short of staff or they need some kind of support, they call us and we partner. And that's really been the way we've been able to survive some of the outbreaks that have happened in different parts of the north so far. And just we remember that we don't let jurisdictional issues get in the way. That really, like,
you need help.
Yeah, we need we're there to support each other.
Because it feels like I think of our elder Margaret Headstep, and women have played a really strong role in our Indigenous communities, and so that's always I found really lovely.
Yeah,
actually, So,
and I would say that the lesson back, what we have to learn from Indigenous communities is their ability to draw on the sense of community. That really nothing else matters except for the well-being of the folks in that community, and they, and they draw together. Their ability to draw together, which sometimes is missing in a little bit larger community, or in a community where you're not connected by family necessarily, or these maybe long-standing roots that some of these communities do have the advantage of having. So it's just a reminder that we're nothing if we don't have the support of the folks around us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Hillary, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks for everything you do in our community.
Thank you.
And for taking the time to, I know how busy you are. I can only imagine how busy you are. And taking the time to come here and chat with us today. And again, thank you for your contribution.
Thanks for having me.
Happy International Women's Week.
Go women.
I am here. We're celebrating another wonderful woman in our community by the name of Donna Head. And she's part of this discussion we're having about women in the health and wellness sector of our community. And we're privileged to have these very strong, lovely women sort of help and support us within our families and within our community in many ways. And so we just wanted to chat about what you're doing, what you're involved with in our community, and and how did you get to where you are now? Like, what was your journey?
Well, right now I'm working as the mental health promotion person, facilitator, and prior to that I was actually a clinician or a counselor with the Northern Health Region. And this position is with the region as well. And before that, I worked in the high school in Cranberry, and prior to that, I was in the city. So my background is social work, right? And just being taught, I guess, from a lot of the women that have come into my life, my mother and my grandmother, mentors and people there's I've been really lucky, I guess, or fortunate that I've had a lot of good role models and people that have shown me, some really good things, and it's kind of pushed me or motivated me to try and do a little bit more in terms of not just mental health, but to do what I can to help other people and to do things in a good way, right? That's a lot of the teachings, when we talk about elders or people that have passed on that information to us. It's done in a way that is it's understood that you know, this is what we do. It's just a natural part, right? That's you know, your purpose basically is to do what you can to help others and to live a good life, right? So
Yeah, well, I've had a chance to meet you and your sisters over the years, and your brother, one of your brothers, and you're such a strong family. You're such a beautifully supportive and strong family to each other, and by extension to the community that all of you are involved. You know,
it's pretty. That's pretty interesting because really, you know, we're all, our mother used to say we're all different, right? But we're all very quiet and we tend to be kind of introverted. But at the same time, we have that part of us that when we're out and about doing the things that we do, whether it's helping or like my brother, you're talking about Irvin, right?
Yeah.
You know, with the art. It's just, I think it's done in a way of, there's the sharing piece of it, right? We want to share what we know, and especially in the sense that getting from A to B, like for ourselves, moving along in our lives and getting through some of the challenges and the things that we faced as a family to the point that we are now, right? It's like full circle. When you're provided those teachings, or you're provided that good base, you want to be able to, you want to share that because it's just the way it needs to be, right? It's the way that you're taught. And family-wise, I think we're all kind of, you know, in the same kind of mindset, right? My mother didn't have a degree or anything like that, but she was incredibly wise in her teachings and in her strength, right? Her strength and resolve and making sure that we did as best we could, right? She was our strongest advocate and taught us to do that for ourselves and for other people, to do what we can, right? Yeah.
So my mother is the same thing. I think she had her grade 11 or whatever, and a lot of her siblings had passed away by the time they, you know, it was very poor people, and that's the way it is. But she, same thing, smartest woman. You could never slip anything past my mom. She knew. Was such an amazing woman, and like you said, I learned strength, I think, from her. I think I never really, until you just said that, I thought, I'm sure, because she was a really strong woman, and I appreciated that. When you talk about sharing, the beautiful thing I always noticed with your family, I think it was Irvin was the first person I met, I think, from your family, and then I met Margaret, and Margaret, for me, I'm going to be speaking to her next. She's like this queen. I felt like I don't think I'm worthy, and so it took me, like, when you talk about being an introvert, it's odd because I'm always in these kind of situations, but I'm also an introvert. I think there's a new term, outgoing introvert or something.
I think so. I would agree with you because we, like I say, we're pretty quiet. We're pretty, you know, until you get us all together, then it's pretty hilarious. But when we're out and about doing what we're doing, like sharing whatever it is with, you know, Irvin with his art, Margaret with her teachings, Cindy with the drum and the teachings, or you know, whatever. It's you don't think about that. You're sharing and you're doing, right? And that's the way that we were taught, right? Yeah. And like you say, your mom was strong, and like our mom was very strong. She was, you know, you didn't want to mess with her.
Yeah, exactly.
But she was just like a mother bear. But at the same time, she knew what she was doing when she was pushing us, and you know, like for me, she really pushed me to get my education, and you know, she said that's what you need to do if you wanna be, you know, independent, and you wanna be able to provide. So, you know, eventually I listened, not so much when I was younger,
Yeah.
but, you know, and those kind of things, they stay with you. You know, the values, the strength, and there's a humility behind that, you know, with her and my grandmother, with the, you know, things that they did to help people, not just themselves and their families, but other people, like everybody, right? And yeah, and it's, you know, sometimes I wonder, you know, if we're keeping that alive as strong as we can, you know, as a society, right? But hopefully we do, right? We want to pass this on, right, to those next generations.
Well, I would say your family is absolutely doing that.
Yeah.
So what's your role in the health
In the region?
region here?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. Right when COVID hit, I switched jobs. I took over in the mental health promotions piece, and it was strange because at that time I was excited because I can go out and I can do the mental health first aid, which is a course that I teach. I can go out to the schools, I can do all this, but then all of a sudden, boom, COVID hit, and just at the time I started, that was it. I was grounded, pretty much, right? Because we were not allowed to travel. So I had to become very much in tune with technology. And I'm not a techie person, or at least they say I'm not. I've managed to learn, right, to do what I can to learn. But that piece of things was not something I was overly comfortable with. So, yeah, I can use the phone, I can email, I can do stuff like that. But the Teams meetings or the Zoom calls and stuff like that, that was kind of new to me. And like everybody else, I adjusted, I adapted. So I connect with people in that way. I'm looking forward to being there in person. That's so anything mental health wise, promotion wise, like presentations, connections, resources I provide to people. I always tell people to phone me if you even want to talk, if you have questions. I have all that knowledge and experience, I guess, from my days as a counselor and a mental health clinician, and I always like to share with people if they want, right? And if they're looking for resources or information, or even just a discussion about, you know, what do you think? And that's my piece of this, or that's my part in the region right now.
How big is your region?
Oh, we cover Flin, Flon, Nepaul, and Thompson, and everything around that, right? Yeah. So the north is a pretty big region.
And how many people
itself
are involved in our?
Well, for promotions, we have there's myself here in Flin Flon, and then there's Shelley in Nepaul, and then there's Jen in Thompson. So there's a promotions person in each area. So we do a lot of collaborating. We do a lot of work with, you know, without those girls teaching me when I first started. I don't know where I'd be, because they have tons of knowledge, right?
Right.
Tons of resources and stuff that they've shared. And
that's a huge region.
it is. It's absolutely huge.
And so
sometimes people don't realize how big the north really is.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So in terms of promotions, so that's just promoting the programming?
Promoting mental health in whatever
mental health.
Whatever way that looks. Like I say, a lot of it has to do with getting out there, getting the resources out there, talking to people, connecting, doing presentations, say on stress, anything and everything that falls under that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and what a time during COVID. I mean, you were so needed.
Yeah.
There was those resources.
Yeah. Well, we have the two pieces, right? We have the mental illness part of things, and I've worked in that field for long enough to be able to have good discussions and provide insight. But the piece I liked about the promotion part is, you know, we're actually promoting, you know, positive life, having discussions with people about what is it that you do that helps you? What is it on a daily basis that you're doing, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, that is helping you to get through not only COVID, but, you know, the days before. And tapping into. I think what I've seen from COVID is it's kind of forced us to slow down in some ways and really look at what it is we need to be doing for ourselves, our families, and our communities, right? Yeah, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true.
Absolutely.
So if you have our young daughters coming up, what do you think we should either be doing to help them, or what words of support should we extend to them? I think the world is so different 10 years ago from it is now even, and so what do you think we should tell them about this field
And
of mental health?
It seems to even be getting quicker, right?
Yes.
With technology, it's made things, it seems anyway, things are very fast. I think I would really, really encourage them to think about what it is they do want to do. If it's career-wise, what do you like to do? You know, get in touch with themselves and their likes, their dislikes, you know, the kind of work they can see themselves doing in the future if they want to be in a helping profession. There's many hundreds probably of jobs within healthcare alone, if they decide to go there, and you know, to really have some good thoughts about it, and you know, to explore it. I mean, you know, to be able to do that in this day and age, it's not as hard as, you know, maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah, maybe with technology, so much of the education piece, people can sort of do it. I think sometimes that's been a barrier in the past in the North, because if you're going to university, you're spending all that educational money, plus you need to live someplace, and if you're missing family or whatever the case might be, it's very, very hard.
I felt like a fish out of water, and I went a little bit later, right? But still, I still missed the North. I missed my family. I had many conversations on the phone with my mom, who just kept saying, okay, well, you're there for a reason. You know, this is about your future. This is about what you've decided to do.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your views and your life with us, and we wanted just to thank you for everything you do in our community, and especially with our pleasure, and we just want to just again acknowledge Donna Head here at International Women's Week in Flin, and wish you just a mentally healthy life, actually.
Absolutely.
And seek help. There's some wonderful people you can talk to if you have any questions
if
or
you're looking for
concerns.
resources.
If you're looking for resources, this is a gentle soul that is just full of information that we're happy to help you. So thank you so much, Donna.
Thanks for doing this, and for the invite, and for everything that you do for the community. And you know, I hear your name a lot, so I know you're doing a lot of good things.
Thank you. So now we're here for another segment of our health and wellness discussions with women in Flin for International Women's Week, and we have Joanna Ledoux, who's one of our dietitians. I don't know how many there are in the community.
There's 3. So there's myself. I'm the community dietitian in Flin. There's a hospital dietitian at the hospital, obviously, and then there's a dietitian with the Best Beginnings Baby and Me program as well.
Well, you know, we've been talking about the environment with various people as well, and all the new information in the last 20 years or 30 years about a dietitian. How did you become? What was the path getting you to where you are now?
Actually, I was in high school when I decided to become a dietitian. And my mom actually worked for dietary at the Flin General Hospital for years and years and years. And she came home one day and she said to me, I think you need to be a dietitian. And I was like, okay. I always listened to my mother. So I thought, okay. Nobody in my family had been to university. It was a new thing, but it was always an expectation for me and my brother and sister that this would happen. So I thought, sure, well, why not? You know, I knew I love science. I knew I wanted to get into the healthcare field. I love food, so I thought this is probably perfect. So I applied to the University of Saskatchewan after I graduated high school, and I got accepted into the College of Pharmacy and Nutrition. And it's actually a 5-year degree, so which people are usually really surprised to find out that it took 5 years to become a dietitian.
Wow.
It's very science heavy. That was also quite a shock to me. So lots of chemistries and biologies and microbiologies and of course nutrition, the science of nutrition. And then the last year is an internship. So you do a 1-year internship. You follow different dietitians around and you do some clinical rotations and community rotations and food service.
Wow.
And then after that, then I graduated from university and I became a graduate dietitian. And then from there, dietitians write a national registration examination. So that was kind of the last step. So I wrote that exam and passed it. And then, yeah.
Wow. So how have things changed over the last decade even?
You know, nutrition science is a fairly new science actually, and it's something that is ever evolving. It's always changing. There is so much research going on. And so I even think back to when I started my career, which was 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago now, and the things that I used to say, and the things that I used to do, and even some of the things that I would recommend. I've almost come like it's been a full turn, like we're into full circle doing totally different things now. But I think one of the things, when I first started out, it was all about nutrition education and that sort of thing, but now it's switching to be more of about people's relationship with food. And so I think what it comes down to is that healthy eating isn't actually rocket science. I mean, if I put a bag of chips on my desk and I put a baked potato on my desk and said pick which one's healthier, people generally know which one's healthier. The question is, why do we not pick the baked potato? So it's, I would say that's been the biggest shift in the way I practice. Is now it's a lot more of about learning about people's relationship with food.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really, really interesting because that's what, for my age group, I remember it was, the food groups and yet then we could see this rise in obesity just generally around the community. Then it was don't miss breakfast, and now it's intermittent fasting, and there's everything in between.
Yeah.
And so I find it really interesting that I think the information is starting to get out there.
The other thing, and I'm glad you mentioned some of the fads. That's another shift in my career is and that I've seen in nutrition, is that for so many years people would maybe do this diet or do this diet or do this diet, and it would work for a while, and then it would get too hard and people would stop, and then in our society, in our culture, we would blame the person and say, well, you couldn't follow the diet, so basically it's your fault. So that's been another shift, is that we're trying to flip it. So I'll often say to my people, so what was hard for you? Like, what was it about that diet that you couldn't do it? And trying to flip it, because it actually is not the person's fault. So it's never the person's fault why they can't eat healthy. There's a lot of reasons why we eat the way we do, and it actually, a lot of them are out of our control. So, yeah.
Well, I think that's the first time I've really heard that description of the relationship with food, because that's absolutely the case. And I did this long walk about a year and a half ago through France and Spain, and again we sort of are aware of different way people eat in different countries. Like going through France and Spain, people wake up, they have their chocolate croissant, and then then away they go, and they have their big meal at about 3:30, and then they eat again at 9 o'clock, and that's it. Yeah. And so it just struck me as how can that be healthy? And how they look all fantastic.
And yet it is. Yeah, they are. They're very healthy. They're very healthy as a culture. Yeah, and I think that's important too, is that we need to be flexible. Every person that comes to see me, they're unique, and so their eating plan and their plan is going to be very different than the next person who comes to see me. And that, I would say, is one of the best things about my job. So in one morning I could be sitting down with somebody and reviewing their food plans and and talking about what we could do to improve a little bit, and then the next person might come down and sit down at my desk and say, I have no food. Well, my goal for that person is to get them
Good
food.
food.
Yeah, so it might actually be taking that person to the food bank, you know, and helping them get set up there. So it's, that's one of my most favorite things about my job is the flexibility and just working with people, you know, figuring out where they're at and trying to help them along, guide them.
Well, that is really, really wonderful. Like you can see how for me it's a bit of a relief, because in my inexperienced mind, it just seems obvious that every human body is different, and every human mind interprets things differently as well.
Yeah,
So it must be a little bit of a Rubik's Cube for you.
It is, yes. I always say everybody's a puzzle. Everybody that comes to see me is a puzzle. And so, and I always tell people that when it gets hard, like when it seems like it's really hard, or I'm the last person you want to see, like in Flin, if you're at the grocery store and you're like, oh no, there's the dietitian, that's when you need to, that's when you need to come. That's when you need to come, book an appointment and come see me, because that's when I need to do my job, you know, I need to figure that out for them and help them guide them with that,
So what are some of the I've been asking everybody, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced and some of the successes?
Yeah, so I really love my job. I'm very passionate about my job. And I do a lot of work outside of seeing individual clients. Like I do spend a lot of time at the food bank, and, you know, we're building a garden and doing different meal bake programs and that sort of thing. I would have to say, though, one of the hardest parts is actually the whole idea of work-life balance. And that is something that I give a lot of credit to a lot of women that came before me, you know, so I feel like lucky, I guess I would say, because I don't necessarily have to fight for my career and fight, you know, all the while carrying all the weight of my family on my shoulders. Like, I think as a society, we've come a long way since then, and so I'm able to have my career, and I'm lucky to have a very supportive family and a supportive work family to kind of balance that out a little bit too. But I would say that would be one of the biggest challenges, and I can't give enough credit to a lot of, you know, there's been a lot of role models within my own workplace that I've looked up to and have learned from and tried to take what I can from them. And
it seems to be a common thing from every woman that we've spoken to that has a family. That is one of the challenges, because of course, you know, we feel like our needs of our family just so passionately and deeply. If you know, we always say you're only as happy as your saddest child.
My mother said that to me the day my first child was born, and I was like, thanks, Mom.
Let's just cheer up. But it's true, you know, and so just trying to incorporate everything else into your life, you know, it's you know, but then if you have a really great support system, whether it's your partner, or your family, or your community, then, you know, there's so much you can do, you know, as in society as a woman, and so we kind of celebrate that.
Absolutely, and it's something that I feel is really important for me to role model to my children. Like, I've got 2 girls, and I want them to know that they can really have everything, you know, like if they, you know, they can have a career, they can have a family, they can be happy, they can, you know, do things. So
Well, we were chatting with another interview about that same thing. I know with things I did in my life with you know, the kids and the musical theater productions or whatever. One of the reasons I felt that it was so important to work so hard to do that was for my daughter, actually. I just wanted to see. I was kind of curious to see, is it possible to do these things? Because I wanted her to be able to achieve all things, because it's wonderful to be a mother, and like it's just such a beautiful experience, and it's wonderful to be able to go and do the passions that, you know, achieve the things that you love.
That's right. And as a dietitian, it's a career, like, and it's my job, and it's important for me to keep that separate. You know, like I'm a dietitian, I'm a registered dietitian, you know, but at home, I'm Mom, you know, and I'm Joanna, like I don't, but at the same time I want to practice what I preach, you know, so it's important to role model the healthy lifestyle to my family too.
Do you still do the chocolate chip oatmeal cookies? Or?
Oh yeah,
oh my God.
definitely, yeah.
I found that, like, I have 2 older kids that are in their 30s, and then the young one that came 10 years after. And it was completely different what was recommended from one generation to the next generation. And I'm sure it's different, you know, from then to now. yet again, and I find it really interesting.
Yeah.
Just to see, and there's also, like, I was making a joke about the cookies, but I'm also impressed with the beautiful foods that are being created, and maybe
Yeah.
because of YouTube,
Yeah.
there's, you can, I didn't really know how to cook spaghetti squash or
Yeah.
whatever, and you could look at this food, and you can look to see how to cook it up, and it's
Absolutely.
so delicious.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wonderful
Yeah.
things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, is there anything else do you like to share about your
I
world?
I don't think so. I think that's good.
That's good?
Probably think of 3 million things after.
Yeah,
That was. I think that captures it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
then on behalf of everybody at the Women's Resource Center, we want to thank you for being part
Thank
of
you
this.
for asking me. I was.
Yeah, we really
Feel-
appreciate it, and just we honor you, and we just appreciate everything that
Thank
you do
you.
in our
Thank
community.
you. Yeah.
And
I feel that way
have
about
a-
you guys.
oh,
So
God.
yeah.
and have a wonderful International Women's Week.
Yeah. Thank you. I will. I will.
So we're here today celebrating Dr. Sylvia George, who is in our community of Flin, and we're celebrating her and her profession for International Women's Week. And I want to thank you for doing this, taking the time to do this, because, talk about busy people.
Well, I really appreciate being with you
Yeah.
today, Krista. Thank you
Wow,
for having me.
I think we've met a little bit at the East or whatever, but it's nice to actually have a chance to chat with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love being here with you as well.
And during COVID, I mean, we've all been in our own little worlds, just trying to do whatever we need to do, and so it's kind of nice. So how does one become a doctor, and how did you end up in Flin, Manitoba?
Okay, this is a pretty interesting story,
Okay.
actually. So I'm from Egypt originally, and both my parents are physicians. So, you grow up in this family that speaks about surgery while they're having supper. Yeah, so it's kind of, this is where you grow in. No, so it was their passion about medicine is actually what got me into passion about medicine. And then in Egypt, actually, to get to the medical school, it depends on your score, the average GPA in the high school.
Okay.
So I was one of the tops of my class.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. I did actually end by joining medical school when I was 16.
Okay.
And then I did my 7 years
You
of
joined medical school when you were 16?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
So I did end by being in the medical school, and then during my study in the medical school, I actually started to develop this huge passion about serving underserved communities, and we have quite a bit of this in Egypt. Kind of facing nearly the same issues that people in Flin are facing. So you're far away from the tertiary centers. It takes you months and months to get to see a
Yes.
specialist. Transportation
Yes.
is far. So this is where I actually started in Egypt. And then, after practicing for 3 years in a rural hospital like Flin, I was mainly doing emerge plus outpatient practice. Canada was asking actually for physicians to immigrate because they were short of physicians.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, and then I ended by coming here. I was staying in the beginning in Hamilton, Ontario, where some family members lived.
Okay.
And then I had the best husband in the entire world,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
Yeah, he's great. You probably know him, have seen him. He was actually very supportive since we came in here. I did do my licensing exam, and in my licensing exam, actually, I scored in the top 1% in Canada.
Wow.
So,
We are really lucky.
yeah. Sometimes it gets challenging, right?
Yeah.
And then Manitoba was asking for physician. I did apply, and I was interviewed by the 4 regions, rural regions in Manitoba.
Okay.
And then I got chosen by the North.
Okay.
And then after this, the North has 3 main centers, so Thompson, Flin, and the PA.
Great.
And they did ask me about where I want to be, and then my husband and I, we decided that we would love to be in Flin,
Okay.
just for the beautiful, wonderful nature actually
Yes,
that's
yes.
here, and then a couple of my colleagues actually did work here.
Yes.
So this is how I ended in Flin Flon.
So you've been here for how many years? Has it been 2 years?
And Flin Flon, you
Yes.
said? 4 years. Actually.
4 years already. Okay, yeah. So, the going from Egypt to Flin Flon must be a bit of a transition. There's another family that actually is a teacher. You probably know them that
Yeah.
actually moved from here to Egypt.
Yeah.
So, what was the? I know we'd imagine that the cold is a challenge. Is that
Yeah, big
But
one.
what about the culture? Like, did you find that challenging?
Okay, so actually, it's pretty interesting because one of the very nice things about being in Egypt is the cozy kind of family embracing environment.
Okay.
And I actually had this since day one I've been in Flin Flon.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
right now I would, I would travel to Ontario for courses. I would travel to Winnipeg for work and
Mhm.
courses. I would travel to Mexico for vacations.
Yes.
But I still miss Flin Flon because I feel that this is my home actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes that's. I'm interested to see what's going to happen post-COVID. My daughter is a businesswoman in Toronto. She's actually in a car driving towards Manitoba. She's packed everything up, and as much as she's really enjoyed Toronto, and she'll continue working through there, but she'll just spend most of her time in Manitoba and maybe 1 week a month in
Yeah.
Toronto, rather than the other way. She was there and then traveling home all the time for family gatherings or whatever the case might be. And I'm wondering whether or not more young people are going to start to realize, because of COVID, that they can have these fulfilling lives in smaller communities. Like,
Yeah.
you could possibly own a beautiful property on a lake.
Yeah.
Or you could live in a small house in Toronto, but some people really want that excitement of that urban setting. But I think there's many people that are going to sort of rethink life a bit.
Yeah, it's just so one of the main things about Eastern communities is how they actually find that family matters the most. Okay, so this is the most important thing in the lives of a lot of Eastern people, right? Where I'm coming from. So right now, for me, really, I've lived in bigger communities.
Yes.
I lived in Winnipeg. I did live in Hamilton, which is
Yes.
quite big. And I went back to the roots of being in a community where I can actually take care of my family, where I feel safe about my family, where I can find people. Because year one, since we came in, we got people, day one, we got people helping us unpacking, we got people inviting us for their New Year Eve and their Christmas celebrations, and even my colleagues in the clinic, like everyone in the clinic was helpful, was rushing to help. And it's not only helping with work, it's helping where I go say, oh, I need to do this, where can I go and stuff, and they would give me the most sincere advice. So this kind of family weather kind of thing makes me feel very satisfied. Some people still would like the crazy busy
Right.
life where they can go to restaurants and
Right.
cinemas and everything every day. But for me, it just, as I said, it comes back to my husband and my 2 kids. And
Right. Sylvia, I felt exactly the same way moving up here. We had 2 young children, a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. This was 25 years ago when we moved up here. And even back then in Winnipeg, when the kids wanted to ride their bikes, I said, that's good. I'd just put my chair in front of the house, and I would have my book, and I'd let them ride around me, and that would be it. And when we moved up here, it was still a place where they could walk a couple of blocks to their friend's house, or else you can do the sports and the dance and the piano and whatever, and it's 5 minutes away from home.
Yeah.
So it's not like rushing to get home for supper, and then you have to drive for a half an hour to get to the place where they can, have their classes. So I found I could do more with my day and still not be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your kids can do more, and your kids can grow among people that they know, that they would feel comfortable staying
Yes.
with. My daughter Perla, she's actually 11 right now, and she had more social life in here than what she had in Winnipeg and in Hamilton.
Yes.
So
Because people are so far away
yeah,
from each other.
Yeah.
Wow, and so how have you managed your life balance with working and children and everything else? Like, do you have extra days off where you can just
no,
rest?
unfortunately I don't.
No.
I hope I can say yes,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah, well, so this is actually is a challenging thing, really, in the life of physicians in general, but even worse during COVID, of course, everyone knows this. So as I said earlier, I'm blessed with a wonderful husband. So and because also, as I said, the family comes first for us. I am actually the one who's working full time, and then my husband is running his own small business. But most of the time, he's actually available for the family,
Nice.
which is great actually
Yes.
of him. What I try to do is to keep work at work and then just come home, focusing with my kids, and take nothing with work with me at home. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I end by working 12, 14 hours a day
Yeah.
for a week or two sometimes.
Sure.
But overall, I make sure that when I go home, whatever time is it, I spend it with the kids. We watch movies, we play together. During the day, if they're off in a vacation or something, I would call my daughter, say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Kind of communicate with her. So overall, this has been working very good. Plus, of course, as I said, she has her own friends that come and visit and play. She goes and play with them, which makes things running smoothly, actually.
Yeah. So do you have, I guess all your family's still in Egypt, I guess, is there?
No, actually, my parents and my sister are in the United States.
Oh, okay, so that's
Yeah.
not too far except for COVID.
Yeah.
That's the advantage of living 800 kilometers north of Winnipeg, because you're just far.
Yeah.
So if you have to go to Europe or United States or whatever, you just have to travel. But
Yeah.
there is a road, there's a plane, there's a bus. You have a car. We have heat. We have food. It'll be okay. Yeah.
And I tell when some of my friends in big cities speak to me or relatives speak to me about this, I say, you know what? I am surviving, and I'm surviving in a very good level of life that I'm so happy about it. I'm having more time with my family because when I go visit them in the city, it takes me an hour and a half
Yeah.
just to commute to wherever
Yeah.
they are, and I'm done when I reach
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And then I would say that every, let's say, 6 or 8 weeks or whatever, I just take 1 week, go to the city, do whatever I need that I can do in here. But day-to-day life, I can do my shopping, I can get my stuff, and I'm fine.
Yeah. So what advice would you give for young women, your daughter, or even older women, women my age that maybe are retired and wanting to pursue just knowledge, information? There's one of the things I've always wanted to do, and I still would love to do, is like a master's or a doctorate going forward. So what advice would you give to women?
Okay, so I actually have to advise to every and each woman out there. First of all, women are wonderful creatures. We are passionate. We have warm emotions. We can make life actually. We can take a lot of effort, and we can work hard, and we can organize. So we're wonderful human beings, not less than men. We're equal actually.
Yes.
So the two advices are, number one, saying, please don't ever be in a place or a relationship that underestimates you, whether physically or emotionally. Don't work for someone who thinks, well, you're a woman, you can do the job, so don't do this. Don't stay in a relation that thinks that you're less or abuses you in any way. You're wonderful, you deserve the best. Trust me, underestimating you is not the best you can get. There is always the best for you out there. Number one. Number two, when you're having a dream, 100%, you can go for your dream. You definitely can. Just think about what you have and what you need. Put your plans, put your priorities, and you're very capable of doing it. It doesn't really make a difference if you're 16 or 60. You can achieve a lot of things. Don't ever think, well, I'm 60 right now, I can do something new. Trust me, every and each day is a new chance to do something new. And always seek for help and support if you need it. There's a lot of resources in the community that can help you. And because I can be part of this, feel free to communicate with me in the clinic anytime you need any advice about anything. I'm more than glad to help every and each one of you guys.
Well, that's about perfect. an amazing human being.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything. And each woman that I've spoken to has so many interesting tidbits of information to share, and they do share. Women do share.
Yeah.
And so I celebrate you, and on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate you, and wish everybody a wonderful International Women's Week.
Happy International Women's Week, everyone. Thank you.